G'day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the first renamed episode of the Girt By Sea podcast, formerly known as the AustrAlien Podcast. Now, my name is TJ Hollis, and with me is the voice of the people, Mr. Sean Mills. Sean, what is the poop?
Mate, what's the poop? There's so much been going on lately. And the fact that you've been sitting on a tropical island for the last month. The big thing for us, I guess, is the change of the podcast name.
Yeah, that's huge.
So that's huge. I'm quite happy with the new name. I was happy with the old name, but unfortunately...
Apparently iTunes didn't.
iTunes was not a big fan of it against Apple, but it just wasn't showing up in their search results because Google Australia and find out we were running into that problem, so...
Pretty much. So for anyone really wanting to know the details, we were if this is your first episode with us, hi, g'day. Cheers for giving us a listen.
Hey,
but, up till now...
fast forward a couple of minutes if you want.
But we've been formerly known as the AustrAlien Podcast, spelled like aliens, the things coming from the sky, because we've got such alien points of view sometimes. We were running into the problem where even though we were on iTunes and, other platforms, they would just assume that Australian, whenever anyone searched for us, that they were looking for Australian instead of Australian. And, I asked Sean to see if he couldn't get a little bit of help from Apple, from iTunes themselves about that. You want to tell them the response, Sean?
Yeah, pretty much change the name of your podcast. So they were very helpful. I'll give them that. They were very helpful, but it was probably in the end the result of the way we named the show. So mea culpa, that was us. So
yeah, sometimes we just thought we were too clever than we actually were.
Well, story of my life, that's for sure.
So anyway, we are now known as the Girt By Sea podcast, and even though we were kind of having a bit of a laugh at the word "girt" a few episodes ago,
yeah,
I still think it's quite catchy,
and
personally.
It's unique. And I challenge you to find another podcast with the word "girt" in it. So,
all right, so apologies for the delay. As Sean said, I have been. With my day job, I work as a musician, as an entertainer, and I was lucky enough to get a month's residency out on Heron Island, which was absolutely fantastic, but unfortunately not a great thing for when it comes to recording podcasts, because the internet out there is very spotty at best.
So it's got the NBN already?
It actually does, and It's really bad.
Out of curiosity, I suppose that's satellite NBN out that
Satellite way? NBN, yes.
Fair enough.
And they have each NBN account out there, the most they could get was 10 gigabyte a month per account. And that usually ends up as 10 gigabytes between about a month between 10 to 15 people.
Yeah.
So it doesn't work very well.
Yeah. Actually, talking about the NBN, here's a piece of interesting news that's happened since last time we talked, last time we podcast, is that I got a letter from Westnet, who are my provider, saying that due to an ACCC court case, the ACCC had basically taken all the NBN providers to court and said, you are offering a service that you are not able to deliver. Won the court case against Westnet, Telstra, Optus, all the big names. And I was given a refund for the difference between what I was paying for, which was my 100 megabyte connection, to what they were actually able to provide, which is about 30 megabytes. So I got a compensation for the difference and downgraded to a lower costing contract. And I'm sure that I'm not the only person in Australia, because it was a massive court case. And I'm sure I'm not the only person in the country that's happened to, so I think the providers have been pulled into line quite nicely by the ACCC. I actually don't really blame the providers. They were just selling what NBN told them they could sell. But at the end of the day, I'm quite happy. I got a check for like $600 or something. So, yeah.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I'd still actually prefer to get the service I was paying for originally.
Absolutely.
But,
as part of the, I don't know, I'm assuming 1% of NBN customers who actually can get near 100 meg per second.
Mm-hmm. You must be right near a node,
I can tell you it is 40 metres down the street.
Okay, yeah.
I can tell you it is absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I can tell you that I'm at the very, very end of the line. And I know that I'm
basically
at the very
where
end
I
of the
was on broadband.
Yeah. I still get about 30 meg, but, it's enough to, watch 4K on Netflix, and the upload speed is a lot better than broadband, which is very nice, and very important for me as a game developer, because I upload and download to Dropbox consistently all through the day, but...
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I thought that was a bit of interesting news that was sort of not really reported on too much. I did see a couple of news articles about it, but I know that the ACCC sued a lot of, all the big names, and if I got a refund, I guarantee there was a hell of a lot more people out there than that. So,
excellent. Awesome. Well, let's get into the news that we were discussing before the show started.
Yep.
First one, I suppose we should, and I only barely want to touch on this one, but after one of our recurring spots over the last few episodes has been the whole Barnaby Joyce saga. And yes, I know, I feel the same way about
That's
it.
all right. It's news.
It's
for some
news.
reason.
But so Barnaby Joyce, after on the 21st of February, basically told the media to move on and respect the privacy of, himself, his ex-wife, his new partner, and their respective families, is now selling interviews.
Mm-hmm. $150,000 Channel 7's Sunday program, or Sunday night, whatever it's called, paid for that.
$150,000.
Yep. Which, in my opinion, is probably why the Channel 7 staff couldn't go to the Logies on the Gold Coast last night. They spent all their money.
Quite possibly.
That's a lot of money for an interview. And it's the most awkward interview I've ever watched in my life. It was just like, I don't know. Anyway, did you watch it?
No, not yet.
No.
I've been waiting to sit down with a bag of potato chips and maybe some Tim Tams.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
Perhaps even a beer.
I think you'll need a couple. Yeah, so Barnaby Joyce, that was interesting. A lot of money there, and he's sort of gone into hiding. The interesting thing that actually came out after that interview was his, I guess, wife or ex-wife, I'm not sure what the situation is there, did a big media interview just the other week, last week or the week before, for one of the women's magazines, like Women's Day or one of those, where she basically told her entire side of the story, including the confrontation she had with Vicky Campion in the main street of, I don't know, whatever town they live in. So that would have been interesting to see. Didn't charge for her side of the story, which she made a big point of mentioning.
Really?
Yeah. Just wanted the facts out there for their daughters. I think she's conducting herself with a fair bit of class, considering the crappy situation that she's been put in.
Absolutely.
Anyway, that's Barnaby Joyce. Let's talk about someone else. He's gone now.
Yes.
We don't have to talk about him anymore.
Exactly. All right. Well, I did. Another piece of news that broke while I was out on Heron Island and unable to communicate with pretty much the entire world is that plastic bags were finally done away with in Queensland.
Yes.
And I know you have some pretty strong opinions on this one, Sean.
I do have a couple. Okay, first of all, I see the point. I see what the government's trying to do, and that's fair enough. It's they don't break down, and they want to, do something good for the environment. That's a good thing. I don't mean, I'm not trying to be sarcastic when I say that it is a good thing. What I don't understand is the way the supermarkets, Coles and Woolies in particular, have actually implemented it. It's just, for companies with massive promotional budgets and PR departments and everything else, it's been a balls up since the 20th of June when Woolies instigated theirs. I mean, they've basically replaced the humble plastic bag with these, reusable in inverted comma plastic bags, which they're now charging us for. And people are like, they've got this new name for it. It's called bag rage. They've literally had fights and people abusing staff and all sorts of things in the supermarkets over this plastic bag ban.
Which, by the way, I would like to point out here, anybody who is actually abusing frontline staff about this,
you're an idiot.
You're a fool.
Yes.
You're a fool. You are a disgrace, and that is, and you know how I hate this word, but that is un-Australian.
Yep.
That is pathetic. Those people who are doing that, you need to take a long, hard look at yourself.
Yep.
Sorry.
No, I completely agree with you, mate. I completely agree with you.
But anyway, so with the plastic bag ban.
Yep.
Now, I'm very much in two minds because I do agree. Look, we need to move on from plastic. Very much. There is a ridiculous amount of plastic in the sea. There is, and the true danger is what's called microplastic.
Yeah.
Microplastic. So, I highly recommend for those of you who enjoy YouTube, the channel Kurzgesagt, or In a Nutshell, as they're also known as. They put out a very good video about plastics today and our over-reliance on them. And they used a lovely metaphor of the story of King Midas, who wanted everything he touched turned to gold.
Yeah.
And how we have found what is basically a magic element in plastic. But the problem is we've now overused it to the point where plastics are ending up in the ocean. And in saying that, it must be pointed out that 85% of the plastic that goes into the ocean comes from the countries China, India, Angola, and Indonesia.
Yeah.
Because these are countries that they industrialized and developed quite recently compared to other countries. And these countries, so they didn't have the infrastructure to deal with all of a sudden all of this waste plastic that they now had.
Yeah.
And in saying plastic has some great uses. There's a reason why we use plastic for so much.
Of course, yeah.
So, and I'm going to reference the Kurzgesagt video again here, but the environmental impact from creating one of those cotton reusable bags is 7,600 odd times larger than the environmental impact of creating a plastic bag.
Yep.
So you would have to use that bag, that cotton bag, 7,600 odd times before you have finally come to an equal, come to even a deficit of how much environmental impact from the creation of the bags.
Yep.
And saying that is just the creation.
Mm-hmm. Plastic,
as we know, is non-biodegradable. It takes between 500 and 1,000 years to degrade.
Mm.
And to me, I'm actually quite interested in this because having just spent a month on Heron Island where there is no plastic at all.
Yeah.
There is no the only plastic there is in reusable coffee cups.
Okay. Yeah.
They don't have straws. They don't have plastic bags. They don't have plastic wrappings on anything out there.
Yep.
Everything is just everything is done with either biodegradable replacements or just done without.
Yep.
They don't have straws at all.
Okay. Yep.
And in saying that, straws are an easy one to get rid of anyway because we can do paper straws. And paper straws work fine.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, straws are only one use really anyway, so...
Exactly. But with the bags, in one hand you've got people, and they're correct when they say it, yes, it's an inconvenience to not have these bags.
Yeah.
Absolutely it's an inconvenience, but we will, with training, learn to adapt and overcome. That's what we do. It's what humanity does.
Sure.
On the other hand, I can't also help but feel that partially there is an element of the big chains here using this as a way to cut down costs. Because before we had plastic bags, we always had supermarkets and markets were always happy to give you free paper ones.
Yeah.
And that to me seems like, free paper bags, free boxes. That seems to me like that'd probably be something that wouldn't cost Woolworths or Coles anymore. Exactly. Well, if they did, and if it did, it would be a negligible amount. But so instead of giving away free paper bags to customers, which they could have done, which would have alleviated a lot of the stress on this situation, they just decided, oh, it's up to you now, bring your own. In fact, here, buy these.
Yep.
It seems to me that's maybe I'm just being too cynical here, but this was supposed to be a problem for retailers to solve.
Yeah.
Not a problem for retailers to pass on to consumers.
I completely agree, mate. That's the thing I don't get. I don't understand how they've so badly botched it up. I mean, as you said, I'm actually old enough to remember getting groceries in a paper bag. And I don't particularly want to go back to those days. But, what about the days of Franklin's where they had the boxes there?
Absolutely.
They crush all those boxes out the back now. They've all got the big, industrial crushers out the back of Woolies and Coles and that. Why can't we go back to that? Or why can't we, if it's really about... I really try not to be a conspiracy theorist, but I swear it's about money for the supermarkets. Money and good PR. Unfortunately for them, the good PR has not worked. But the money, if it's about the environment, then they need to be doing something about all the plastic, and this has been commonly said everywhere, all the plastic that everything's wrapped in the fruit and veggies. I mean, you can buy a bag. You don't buy potatoes loose anymore. You buy a kilo bag in a plastic bag. You buy your onions. You buy tomatoes in a little sealed bag of 4. If you get like a trellis tomato, they come in a pack of 4. So there's not an awful lot of the fruit and veg out there now, which are actually, just pick up 1 or 2 pieces. Which again, I actually think is about selling more of the product because
exactly.
You got to buy 4 tomatoes instead of just 1 if you just need 1. I don't understand how they've botched it so badly. And, Woolies...
I absolutely do. I understand exactly how they botched it so badly.
Mm-hmm.
They botched it so badly because they're more interested in protecting profit margins. Yet than giving the customer a good experience.
Well...
And that to me, having spent 6-7 years working for Coles in their liquor division.
Yep.
That is absolutely the way these big companies are running. There has been a sea change behind the scenes in business, where it's all about 1%ing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what, and I very much remember my area manager when I was running a Liquorland store. My area manager and my state manager coming for a meeting and telling us all about how we needed to be thinking about what's a 1% saving we can do here. What's a 1% saving we can do here? And whenever anybody would pipe up and say, well, yeah, I see how that's going to save the company money, but that's not giving the customers what they want. That's not giving the customers good service. They'd say, yes, but it's giving the shareholders good service.
Yeah.
And the point is, and this is where, and we're seeing it coming to a head with the bag rage. We're absolutely seeing that the fruits of that labor, the fruits of that mindset are coming to a head.
Yep.
Because
no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
In the end, if these companies cannot give consumers what they expect as a service, then the shareholders are going to lose money regardless. But unfortunately, these companies aren't seeing it that way. They're being short-sighted. And you are absolutely correct. You are absolutely correct when it comes down to talking about the shrink wrapping and the packaging plastics. And to me, that's what the government should have been focusing on next.
Yeah.
That's somewhere where the government can really make a big difference. Honestly, I personally, and this is where you may think I'm, rabid, greeny, whatever, but there is no reason why they're not banning plastic straws.
Well, Coles are taking them out. Coles are no longer selling. I think it's Coles are no longer going to be selling them. I don't have I don't have a problem with saving the planet. I think it's a good idea. I just think there's just the level of hypocrisy behind this this plastic bag ban. Bottom line, I don't think it's making any difference. People recycled their grey plastic bags from the supermarket anyway. Absolutely,
and that's something that's not being brought into consideration with this.
My food scraps all go into one of those bags, and we, a couple of those a day, not just food scraps, but rubbish goes into those bags, and a couple of those a day, they go into the rubbish bin. So we're actually going to, if we keep doing that, personally I'm just going to throw my crap in the rubbish bin, and the council can deal with the smelly bin. It's not my problem. But, because I refuse to buy bin bags, I'm going to have to buy bin bags now, on top of, these recyclable bags. And let's be honest, most people are going to buy the 15-cent bags. They're not going to recycle them. Because here's the thing. What has been the massive push for the last 10 years in the supermarkets? What has really changed in the last 10 years in the supermarkets? 10 years ago when our mothers went shopping, or, longer than that, but, up until about 10 years ago, our mothers would go shopping for the week's groceries. Take them home, put them in the cupboards, as a general rule. Not everyone, of course, but, as a general rule. And then the supermarkets started pushing it, Coles and Woolies in particular, to convenience shopping. They redesigned the supermarket so it's convenience shopping. Those supermarkets are all designed now so that you never have to go down the aisles. You only have to go around the edge of the shop. And then out the checkouts. It's convenient. You don't have to see someone at the counter now. You can just scan your 2 or 3 items out. And we've moved into over time, we've moved into a culture that goes to the shop, a bit like America, goes to the shop and buys, a day or 2 days worth of groceries and then goes back again. And there's the convenience. I'll just duck into Coles Express on the way home. I'll just duck into this little, the Woolworths attached to the petrol station on the way home and pick up a couple of things. It's a complete contrast now to, basically they're saying, you have to be prepared now. You have to make sure you've got your bags with you. And so there's a hypocrisy there. They've completely flipped that around of what they've been selling for the last 10 years as a convenience. It's no longer convenient. You can't just, oh, well, I'm just, walking home from work. I've got to just duck into the supermarket.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do that anymore without having to buy a new plastic bag. Because people don't walk around with these plastic bags. They might have some in the car, but they might not.
Exactly.
So I think they're going to be selling a lot more of these these reusable 15-cent bags, which are plastic. They've replaced plastic with plastic. I think they're going to be selling a lot more of those. So
absolutely.
I think the whole thing's just crap. I think they can just come up with something better.
Well,
save the planet, but figure out something better.
Absolutely. You've got to do it in a way that you've got to save the planet, but figure out ways to sell it to people, to make it easy for people.
Yeah.
There is no reason why you can't figure out ways to make it easier for people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's interesting that you brought up the cardboard boxes there, because do you know who's been doing that for about 8 years now?
Aldi? Have they been doing it?
Woolworth's sister company, Dan Murphy's.
Ah. Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
Not only Dan Murphy's, but I believe First Choice as well. So for the last 8 years, you haven't been able to walk into one of those stores and get a plastic bag. They had the recyclable bags for sale.
Yep. The green ones.
The green ones, or the red ones, or the black ones.
Whatever. Yeah, but yeah.
Yep. They've had them for sale for $1.50 each, or you could just get your alcohol put into the boxes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The boxes that it came with.
Yeah.
It came from anyway.
I just realised probably why they don't use the boxes anymore. So you
Why
think about the way they stock the shelves in the supermarkets now. They don't put the item on the shelf. They put the box on the shelf and then rip off the side of the box.
True, but those aren't the sort of boxes that you would be using to carry.
I suppose you're using the big box that has 8 or 10 of those in it, yeah.
And you'd be using the boxes that the individual fruits come in.
Yeah. Look, it's
which
really
they do have them there.
Yeah, that's true.
Sorry.
So I was just going to say, it's really interesting, the Dan Murphy's thing. It's a very good test case for Woolworths to do that, because it's not the sort of place you buy a lot of little things. You buy a bottle of scotch or a bottle of rum or something, or if you buy a carton, you wouldn't have ever got that in a bag. But
do you know what they have for? Do you know what they have for when you buy 1 or 2 bottles?
No?
Paper bags.
Wow, that's cool. That's old school.
And honestly, nearly every liquor store in the country still has paper bags.
Yeah.
Why? Because it never went out of fashion especially in states like Queensland where it's illegal to drink booze in public. It never went out of fashion for people to buy a Tawley and stick it in a paper bag.
Yeah.
And drink it as they were walking down the street.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well,
why
not?
Yeah.
Why not?
I mean, apart from the fact it's illegal.
Well, only here.
Whether it should be or shouldn't is a different story, though.
Well,
and not something we're getting into right now.
No. I don't think it's illegal in all states.
No, it's not.
No.
It's not illegal in all states.
No.
Certainly is illegal in Queensland, though.
It is illegal in Queensland because I've been done by having an open beer in the King George Square. But in my defence, I was thirsty and wanted to drink one. I'd forgotten about that. Cool. Anyway. Cop was alright. Actually, he was a nice guy. It was probably about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I was just walking home from the because I used to live just out of the city, and so I was just walking home, probably a 15-minute walk. Because you get to the end of the night, and you're like, should I get a cab or should I have the last drink? And you always get the last drink. So, well, you do if you only live 15 minutes away. And I'm just walking through King George Square, the back when it had grass in it, and I just cracked open one of my Bundy rum cans. It wasn't a beer. And just taking a sip out of it, and the copper comes up to me and goes, "Oh, you can't drink, can't have alcohol in public space." I'm like, really? He goes, "Yeah, it's an issue, but if you drink it really quickly and put the can back in the bag, you won't have it open in public space after that." I'm like, well, I accept that challenge. So, a lot of others might have just made me throw it out or something, but he was all right. So
awesome.
Anyway, bit of sidetrack there.
Well, as you can see, listeners, we're very human.
Yeah. Well, I don't really drink much anymore, but I've got some good stories from when I did. As you know,
we've all got great stories from when Sean drank.
Mm.
Anyway, so
remember the time my brother picked up the chair and threw it at me?
Oh, let's not get into these.
In the Irish bar, in the Irish pub.
I wasn't there for that
because I took his hat, or he took my hat and I took it back, something like that. Yeah, you were, mate. You were there. Absolutely.
I was focused on other things then, because I don't actually remember it happening.
Well, that was the night that I think that's the night that I met Lisa.
Well, I wasn't there that night.
Yeah, you were.
I wasn't there the night you met Lisa.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm not going to argue this point because I honestly can't remember. It's all a blur.
Well, moving on from these stories before we get too many drunken stories in.
Oh, if you guys had heard what we've edited out of this.
Oh, absolutely. There's some corkers there. But the last thing I wanted to touch on was I was, as some of our long-term listeners know, I'm a bit of a sports fan, and basketball especially. And I was watching the Boomers and the Australia versus Philippines part of the Olympic World Cup qualifier. And with I believe it was about 5 minutes to go in the third, there was a brawl.
Oh, there was a brawl.
Oh yeah, there was a brawl. I sent this literally happened just before we started recording tonight as well. So
this is so hot off the press. I don't think it's an hour old yet. So
no, it's not. And it's absolutely astounding. I thoroughly recommend that everybody look up footage of this, because this is exactly what we as a country do not want for our international image, especially when it comes to sporting. So what happened was one of our players, Chris Goulding, got hit with an elbow. It was a foul. It was a dirty move by a Filipino player. To which Daniel Kickett, another one of our players, responded by taking a few steps and basically hitting the guy with a Muay Thai style elbow straight to the side of the face, which sparked a brawl between 5 Australian players and about 30 or 40 various Filipino players, Filipino coaches, Filipino basketball staff, and fans.
Yeah.
It ended up with one of our guys literally being held down in a chokehold while 15 Filipino basketball staff and players laid the boots in. If you saw it on the street, you would be calling it a boot party.
Yep. I seriously encourage. I'm not a basketball fan, and I like a bit of the biff, So if you like a bit of the biff, check it out. It was on the foxsports.com.au. I saw the whole clip of it. It's actually, I say I like a bit of the biff, but this is actually a bit more than just a bit of the biff. I think it'll be top page news.
It's already top page news in America.
Let me just quickly look. Yep. Okay, so 13 people are ejected. So it's the top story on news.com. Just checking it out right now.
Yep, there was 4 Australian players were ejected. 9 Filipino players were ejected. And which leaves for those who are basketball fans, that leaves 3 Filipino players left able to play, which is the absolute minimum for what a team needs to be able to have in FIBA basketball, in international basketball. So, of course, the Filipino team, as soon as the game restarted, just basically went and made their players just take fouls until they could, forfeit the game.
Yeah.
But what really was beyond the pale is after the officials had separated everyone, and police are involved at this point, what do the Filipino players do? They grab a fan, takes the fan on court, and has a whole team selfie celebrating the fight. Like you said, a little bit of a biff in sport ain't necessarily a bad thing.
It's good.
Not all the time. It's not all the time a bad thing. It's great to see, people getting fired up because they really want to win. But this is beyond the pale. This is disgusting.
Mm.
You've got people literally getting hit with the coward punch from behind.
Yeah, well, that's right. It's.
But I would like to put the call out. I would like to put the call out right now. Mm. Don't make this a racial thing, people, please.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't. Yeah. I'm already looking. I've been following this on Twitter as we've been recording, and in amongst all the people decrying the action and what's happened, you're seeing smatterings of people on both sides bringing race into it, and they're saying nasty things and generalizing all Filipinos and generalizing all Australians and saying nasty things about the other side. And I just want to ask everyone, please, don't be that person. Yeah. There was nastiness on both sides of this, and absolutely what the Filipino program did is far beyond the pale. And to be honest, I'm just very, very, very hopeful that everyone who's part of Australian basketball gets out of that country alive right now.
Yeah.
Because that was a crowd baying for blood.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely.
I hate to end the show on that sort of down note, but...
Do you want to end on a different down note then?
Sure.
Just came in over ABC. I was just reading this. I was actually just checking ABC's website to see if it was the number 1 story. It's not. It's number 2. But a different story is that the Nauru government is refusing the ABC access to the island.
Wow.
Arguing that the ABC is blatantly interfering in domestic politics.
Wow. Can I get some sort of clarification from you on what they mean by interfering in domestic politics?
Okay.
Do they mean the government of Nauru's politics? Do they mean the ABC is interfering with Australian politics?
Oh, I think Nauru politics would be the way. Okay. It should be noted that no representative from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation will be granted a visa to enter Nauru under any circumstances due to this organisation's blatant interference in Nauru's domestic politics prior to the 2016 election, harassment of and lack of respect towards our President in Australia, false and defamatory allegations against members of our government, and continued bias and false reporting about our country.
Wow. Wow, there's a lot to take in there.
So the Nauru government is criticised. This is just reading actually straight off the ABC website here. So the ABC's responded. Okay, so the reason this has come up is because there's a regional forum later this year, which is the Pacific Islands Forum that all the islands and us do. Every year or so, and Turnbull's attending, of course, as Prime Minister. And so the ABC says that they vigorously defend their role in doing independent reporting on our region. The ABC does not intend to vacate our position in the media pool covering the Pacific Island Forum in Nauru. The Nauru government should not be allowed to dictate who fills the positions in an Australian media pool. Can hardly claim it's welcome in the media if it dictates who that media will be and bans Australia's public broadcaster. The Nauru government has criticised the ABC in the past for its reporting on the island's asylum seeker processing, which is funded by the Australian government, and for airing allegations the nation's president, Baron Waka, maybe? W-A-Q-A, anyway. The president and some of his ministers were bribed by an Australian
Waka.
Baron Waka, okay. And some of his ministers were bribed by an Australian businessman. Wow, I can see why the ABC would be upset about it, but quite frankly, every country's sovereign. They're allowed to. I might not agree with them, and I actually don't agree with them, but I can see they've got the right to, if they want to. We're not Nauru. Nauru are not us. We don't have the right to tell them who we can allow, who they allow into their country and who they don't.
Absolutely, you are correct there. In saying that, I think that this very much looks like one of those cases where, by denying them entry, the Nauru government is basically tacitly confirming that there's things going on that they're trying to cover up.
I'd say they're just annoyed at the ABC. Anyway, it's interesting. We might have a look at how that develops, eh?
Absolutely. That's a story very worth keeping an eye on. And you can absolutely believe, ladies and gentlemen listening, that it will not be as long a wait for the next episode. Thank you, everybody who stuck with us through the name change and has stuck through this entire episode with us, and we very much appreciate. If you would like to leave a review for us on iTunes, or some comments on YouTube, or even hit us up on Facebook or Twitter just to get in contact. And we hope that people will be able to find us a little bit easier now.
Absolutely. We should be available on iTunes and searchable, which is really good. So, and if you're already subscribed on iTunes, you don't need to change anything. It's still the same feed. So it would have just changed its name in your listing on your iPhone or whatever in iTunes. So
awesome. Well, from Sean and myself, TJ, we'd just like to say thank you to everyone, and we'll catch you guys